Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Pagan Happy Hour. Happy Freya's Day. I am so excited to be chatting with you all today. And today we are going to be talking about meditation, but specifically how meditation has been used both historically and today in pagan practice. So I am really looking forward to the discussion. We're going to chat about what even is meditation, what the key benefits are of meditation. We're going to discuss some examples of meditation in different pagan cultures and societies, because of course we're familiar with the Buddhist version of meditation, but there were a lot of other kind of ancient pagan cultures across the globe that did meditate. So we're going to talk a lot about that. Then we're going to go over different types of meditation and how you can incorporate some of these types into your own spiritual practice. So thanks for joining me, everyone. If you are new to Pagan Happy Hour, I do this every Friday at 5 Central, and it's a really good way for us pagans to just kind of have a drink, relax, and chat about a different topic. So I'm going to be looking over here at the comments regularly because I want to bring your thoughts and your ideas into the conversation as well. So it's not just me blabbering on this entire hour. And if you do enjoy Pagan Happy Hour, there are two ways you can support the show. The first way is through my Patreon. I do have the link down below. And if you do choose to become a patron, you gain access to my exclusive Discord server for fellow pagans and witches, which is a really great place to chat about a variety of different pagan topics and to find resources. And actually, one of my patrons suggested the topic of today's Pagan Happy Hour. So thanks very much, Dan, for suggesting this week's topic. And the other great way you can support Pagan Happy Hour is through Super Chats, which is the $ icon at the bottom of the chat. And that allows you to donate any amount. And I'm going to see your question or comment pop up really big on my screen. So I'll be sure to bring your ideas and your questions into the conversation. So now that we got that situated, I would love to hear from you guys where you are watching from and what you're drinking. Let me cue the drink music and let's get started. So today I'm having a glass of red wine, a very rare vintage, Charles Shaw, circa 2020. That is, of course, sarcasm for my European friends who might not know what I'm talking about. But let's see where you guys are chiming in from. Let's see, we have people from Indiana, New Brunswick, Texas, Canada, England, West Michigan, Tacoma, Minnesota, and Turkey, Madison, Kentucky, Philadelphia, let's see, Stevens Point, Wisconsin, London. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing. And I did see someone asking about my upcoming move. So pardon the box in the corner. I am going to be leaving the great state of Texas and moving to Savannah, Georgia shortly. So I'm really excited for the move though, and really excited to be moving to the most haunted city in America. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe my new apartment will be haunted. I'll of course keep you updated on that. But yeah, let's jump into the conversation. Let me have a quick sip and we'll get going. So meditation. Now, this is a big topic and really, I'm not going to be able to cover everything here, but let's start with kind of what meditation is and where it comes from, because meditation actually has really ancient origins from about 5,000 BCE. We're talking a long time ago. And this practice most likely started in either China or Egypt. I found conflicting reports here, but it primarily traveled along the Silk Road in China as the main way that meditation as a practice moved throughout the globe. And, meditation is not just for Buddhism. You'll find meditation in a lot of other popular religions, such as Judaism, but also Hinduism, Jainism, even Sikhism. Of course, Buddhism is the most popular, but then we'll also be looking at some ancient pagan cultures that practice meditation as well. So this is a practice that has been incorporated in so many different cultures across a large swath of time. So I think that's really exciting. And it's especially interesting that today we've seen such this huge resurgence of interest in meditation. So we are really going way back to our ancient ancestors here when we are tapping into this practice. So originally, meditation is quite a bit different than how we practice it now. Originally, it was more of a spiritual practice to connect with the divine energies of the universe or the divine spirit within. Nowadays, meditation has become pretty popular and it's lost a lot of its spiritual connotations and has started to become just a technique for reducing anxiety and stress. But when you look at ancient examples of meditation, this really was a way to deepen our understanding of the spiritual world, which I think is really cool. Um, so, with meditation, really the purpose of it is to calm and quiet your mind and to focus your attention. And what you're focusing your attention on can change based on what type of meditation you're doing. Perhaps you're just focusing on your breath, or maybe you're doing a visualization technique. And in general, this process of quieting our mind and focusing it really does help to decrease the heart rate, helps us to relax and find a sense of inner peace and calm, which nowadays it seems to be more important than ever that we incorporate these kinds of practices into our life. But before we get into some of the main benefits of meditation, I'd like to hear your experience. I asked earlier on my Instagram how many of you guys incorporate meditation into your spiritual practice, and I think it was over 80%. So I'd love to hear from you in the comments how often you meditate, if you do meditate, and what kind or type of meditation you like to do. And if you found it really meaningful or successful, or are you one of those people that really struggles with meditation or hasn't really found it to be worthwhile? I love to hear your thoughts on your own experiences with meditation too. So let me check the comments here while I have a sip of my wine and see what you guys have to say. So let's see, I see Michael in the comments is saying that he does Zen meditation every day. That's pretty awesome. Let's see. Alexander says meditation under a old tree strengthens my connection with nature and the divine. Awesome. Let's see. Jessabeth says I try to do meditation once a week, and that she counts yoga as meditation as well. Yeah, I definitely think yoga can be a form of meditation. Let's see. Lynn Smith says that she does daily meditation with dance and music each morning. That sounds wonderful. And let's see. Fantastic Beck says, I normally do mindfulness meditation, but I'd like to make it a more spiritual practice. Let's see. Peach says that she doesn't do meditation and doesn't understand it, or at least not yet. Let's see. Draven says, I like to do meditative journeys, but sometimes it's a struggle to get there. But when I do, it's more than worth it. Awesome. Yeah, so it seems like there's quite a good spectrum here among you all watching. Some of you that don't really do much meditation, and then some of you that really find a lot of profound meaning in the practice. So that's really great. And of course, like any topic that we're talking about, there's going to be huge variation, especially when we're going to be discussing pagan meditation and what that is, because there is no one true or one right answer. But before we get to some of the specifically pagan examples of meditation, let's take a couple moments to just go through some of the key benefits here, which I'm sure you're pretty much already aware of. Of course, meditation has been used both historically and today for managing stress, for increasing our own self awareness, and also helping us focus on the present. That's something I personally struggle with. I'm always looking towards the future. So I really enjoy that meditation has allowed me to live a bit more in the present. Um, Meditation can also reduce our negative emotions. It can increase our imagination and creativity, which is pretty cool, I think. It can also increase our patience. So if you struggle with being patient, as honestly I do, meditation can be a good way to increase your tolerance for patience. Then also physical things. Meditation has been linked to relieving pain. It reduces high blood pressure, and there are a lot of other medical things that meditation has helped with. And now the science on that isn't fully there quite yet. There have been several studies, but I think that the more studies they do, in general, they're finding that meditation is not just good for the emotional self, but also quite good for the physical self as well. And another huge benefit of meditation for some of you that may be practicing witchcraft is that meditation is really that first step to journeying. And there are many different practices that might fall in this realm of trance or journeying. I actually did a video about journeying a while ago. But if you're into traditional witch stuff, you might have heard of hag writing, which is a journeying practice. So a lot of this witchy trance and spirit work often involves having a pretty good level of meditative skill, because before you can even get to that point, you have to have already established skills in calming the mind and focusing the attention. And even visualization as well, for those of you that do spells. That's a huge skill. And that skill, in a large part, is very similar to meditation, because you are trying to focus your full attention on one particular thing and to quiet the chatter. And until you can quiet that chatter and focus your attention, spell work isn't going to be very effective until you've mastered those skill sets. Let me see what you guys have to say about these benefits. And of course, let me know if you've experienced any benefit in particular that I haven't quite mentioned yet. So let me see what you guys have to say. Let's see. Black Forge has a really great question asking, would trance work be part of meditation, or is it the other way around? How meditative would you consider ecstatic practices? Great question. I'm not sure I quite have the answer there. I think they are very similar. So there's a lot of crossover between trance work and meditation. And that if you improve trance, you're going to be better at meditation. And if you improve meditation, you're going to be better at trance. So I kind of view them as kind of different skill sets, but very complementary skill sets. But that's my personal opinion. Let's see, Michael here says that it helps me clear my mind before I read tarot. Me too. And I do a lot of tarot readings. That's what I personally do for a living. So I often like to at least spend a couple minutes, if I can, quietly meditating before I start a reading because it really allows me to just fully focus on the reading because I've already cleared away all that nonsense from the day. Let me see here. I see we have a couple trolls in the comments already. That can happen, of course. So let me see what else you guys have to say. Jeffrey says, I consider daydreaming and visualization as meditating. I often visualize or meditate ritual rather than perform a physical ritual. I find it more relaxing that way. That's really interesting. The idea of performing the ritual within your mind as opposed to performing it physically. I personally haven't tried that before, but maybe I'll give it a go. Let's see. And Catherine here says that learning breathwork meditation really helped her overcome PTSD. Yeah, I mean, meditation has been used a lot, for PTSD and a lot of other things. So it's a really powerful tool, and it's amazing. We have access to it for free. You don't need to buy anything. As much as the apps will try and convince you that you need to spend money on meditation, you really don't. All you need is yourself. And that's something really wonderful about meditation. It's so kind of inherently anti-capitalist. Let me see here. Okay, you guys seem to have a lot of thoughts and ideas on this topic, which is wonderful. So let's jump into some examples of meditation in pagan societies. So, of course, we're already familiar with Buddhist versions of meditation, so I'm not going to go over those today, though I highly recommend you looking into them. But I wanted to bring in how meditation may have been used in a couple different pagan cultures. So we're going to discuss Norse paganism, then we're going to go into Hellenism, and then Roman paganism. Now, there are probably other pagan societies that incorporated meditation as well. We do think that possibly the ancient Egyptians did. And I was looking for an example of meditation done within Slavic paganism, but I wasn't able to find a specific historical account. Let me know if you know of one, because I'm really curious there. But let's start with Norse paganism. So Norse paganism, like Celtic paganism, is difficult because we don't have much written material here to go on. So the example that I want to give today is from the Havamal, and it's referring to Odin's great sacrifice, where he sacrificed himself on the world tree. And there was a purpose behind this. He did this in order to receive wisdom. So he hung from the world tree for 9 days and 9 nights and kind of eventually entered into this trance-like state. Now, this trance-like state, is it quite meditation? Is it not? You could debate this. But to me, I feel like there is quite a bit of crossover here with the story of Odin hanging from the world tree. Now, after he does this very long meditative trance-like sequence, he eventually does attain this sacred wisdom. He attains the knowledge of the runes. The runes were very powerful, both as the alphabet used to write in, and then also as magical symbols. And I've talked a lot about the runes in previous videos, so I highly recommend checking those out if you are interested. But he also gained other wisdom as well. So he gained the ability to shapeshift after this meditative journey. He gained the ability to cure the sick and to turn weapons against his attackers and to calm great storms. So, from this intense experience of both sacrifice and meditation, he gains these great powers, this ability of wisdom that allows him to become this extremely powerful deity we know him as. So I find this story super fascinating, and this does come from the Havamal, which I highly recommend you get a copy if you are new to Norse paganism. So let me check your comments here. I see Genghis is asking if Yggdrasil is the tree that he was on. Yes. I've heard it pronounced different ways, Yggdrasil, so I'm sure I might be doing it wrong. But let's see. Peach is asking, do you think Odin is the hanged man in tarot? Yes. Very much so. There are two cards in tarot that I associate with Odin. The Hanged Man is one of them. The Hanged Man is also about a form of sacrifice and meditation that allows you to see the world in a different perspective from everyone else. The Hanged Man is someone who is an outsider in the community, perhaps even the black sheep in the community or their family. But because of their differences, they're able to gain wisdom, gain spiritual knowledge that no one else can. The Hanged Man is a super mysterious and fascinating tarot card. I highly recommend looking into it if you are into tarot. And the other tarot card I associate with Odin is the Hermit. The Hermit shows an old man wandering across these snowy mountaintops, and he's wearing this cloak. And that is something that Odin did. He wandered the realm of Midgard wearing the cloak disguised as an old man so that he could gain further knowledge and wisdom about our world. Odin was intensely curious. And that's one of the qualities that I personally relate to the most. And one of the reasons he's one of the more fascinating deities to work with in the Norse pantheon, or at least this is in my opinion. So I think there's a lot there. Now, it's not exactly specifically meditation as we know it, but I think what Odin did there was very meditative. So I think that's really cool. Oh, and I see we have our first super chat from Peach. Cheers. Thank you very much. And she says, I have been looking at all my sets of tarot cards and taking notes. Awesome. Yes, please do. There are so many fun variations of the Hanged Man card, some of which even feature runes or show the Hanged Man as looking like Odin. You won't find that in the earlier versions, more so in the more contemporary decks. But that's not the only example of meditation that you find in ancient Norse culture. This example comes from one of my patrons who told me about Thorgeir. I might be pronouncing that wrong. It's Thor, Thor, and then Geir. Now, he was an actual person, an Icelandic lawgiver, or a member of the judiciary party, I guess you could say. And this, we're talking around 1000 AD in Iceland. Now, Iceland at the time was in this process of figuring out if they should convert to Christianity. Iceland, as you may know, was pretty much the last full pagan country to convert. They held out the longest, so cheers to them. And this man, he decided to meditate. They used the phrase under the cloak. You can almost imagine someone pulling their cloak over their head and spending time quieting their mind so they could focus on this intensely important question, the question of should Iceland become Christian? Now, unfortunately for us, he did choose that Iceland should convert to Christianity, but he did make some provisions that pagans could still practice their faith, and he did still allow the continuation of several other folk and pagan customs. So while this was the start of the end of paganism in Iceland, of course, paganism in Iceland never fully ended. But I do find it interesting that we see this example of a man participating in meditation at a time when Iceland was still predominantly pagan. So those were two examples I wanted to bring to you guys from the Norse pagan world. Though, of course, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you can find other examples of meditation in Norse paganism, I'd love to hear your thoughts and your ideas. So let me check your comments. And then next, we're going to move on to Hellenism or ancient Greek paganism. Let me have a sip of my wine first. Let's see, Catherine has a fun comment. She says, for a while, when I was trying deity work, Odin was the only god to come through, and truthfully, it scared the S out of me. Yeah, Odin is a super powerful deity, extremely mysterious in my experience of working with him, and is definitely one of the primary deities that I do work with. Let's see. Let's see, Genghis is talking about Thorgir, saying that he is basically the St. Patrick of Iceland. Yes, indeed. I have talked in length about the story of St. Patrick and his conversion of Iceland in a few previous videos you can check out if you're interested. Let's see. Oh, I see an interesting thought here from RP. That says the Norse seem very action-oriented rather than meditative. Yeah, I think that is possible. Though, another thing that I've always found so fascinating about Odin is he is both a god of war and chaos and wisdom, which kind of, at least the war and chaos, they kind of go together. But the war and wisdom, kind of interesting to have the same deity connected with those two realms. So kind of neat. Let's see here. Oh, and I see someone mentioning that Odin is the god of poetry. Yes, indeed, he drank from the great horn of mead, the mead of poetry. Love that story. Highly recommend checking it out in the Poetic Edda. Let's see. Sorry, apologize. I need some water here. So yeah, let's switch over to Greece. So meditation was actually pretty common in ancient Greece, which is surprising. We don't normally think about ancient Greeks meditating. Of course, we associate them with philosophy and democracy, but meditation, not so much. But in fact, the ancient Greeks had a muse of meditation. Her name was Melete. It's Melete, if you want to look it up. And she was one of the original three muses that was eventually expanded to include more muses. But she was the muse of meditation. Now, meditation in an ancient Greek pagan context was very much tied to the philosophers and the concept of knowing thyself. So meditation was a means to an end. It was something you could do to understand yourself better. And they had a technique there that the purpose was really to kind of understand the unconscious or the subconscious self, to try and make what is in the subconscious conscious, right? And once it is conscious, then you know yourself better, and then you can make proper actions that are in greater alignment with your true desires. Now, this to me is really interesting, this concept of the subconscious and the conscious, in part because I have a background in tarot. And with tarot, really the whole purpose of tarot is to make the subconscious or the unconscious conscious so that we can better know thyself. So really the whole practice of tarot and many other divination methods is to become aware of our subconscious desires so that we can make better decisions that are in better alignment with what we really want. And that perspective is very ancient Greek in reality when you think about it. There are so many examples of tarot symbolism that is associated with the unconscious realm. Water in tarot, for example, is tied to the subconscious or the unconscious. And when you ask how tarot readers can read tarot for another person, what they're doing is they're really tapping into something called the collective unconscious, or this idea that we humans, and potentially even animals and nature as a whole, share a part of ourselves, and that part of ourselves that we all share can be accessed through these meditative practices and these divinatory tools. So how a reader reads tarot for another person is they are trying to remove their conscious mind, tap into their subconscious so that they can tap into the collective unconscious so that they can then understand that person's subconscious. And then using that information, bringing it to the conscious state so that we can then verbalize what our true needs and desires are. So I find that very fascinating. And this is something not just in the esoteric or the mystical arts. This is what psychologists study, or even great thinkers like Carl Jung, who I highly recommend learning about if you're interested. He was someone that really believed in the power of understanding the subconscious or the unconscious. I just find it so neat. Oh, there's a fly over here. That the ancient Greek concept of meditation, of knowing thyself by using this meditative practice to uncover our hidden desires in the subconscious, is something I do really every day with tarot. And so many of you guys do as well. So let me check your comments here. I see Genghis Galahad says, tarot cuts through the literal analytic part of the mind to get through. Yes, and tarot is this interesting combination because it uses both. It uses your intuition and this tapping into the subconscious, plus it uses a language of symbolism. So it does use some types of book learning or analytical skills because we have to kind of learn and memorize this language of symbolism. But at the same time, it's that deep understanding of the subconscious that allows you to gain answers that you wouldn't get normally. And it also is what allows tarot to be kind of spooky and be like so spot on sometimes. Let's see. Oh, this is an interesting comment from Beja that says the Oracle of Delphi used to be the Oracle of the goddess Gaia. Then the male gods took over, but it was the priestesses who remained. I don't know about that. I didn't know that the Oracle of Delphi was tied to the goddess Gaia, but very possible. That's really interesting. Thanks for sharing. Let's see, Catherine says in the comments that she's reading Marcus Aurelius right now. And I feel that his definition of Hellenistic meditation makes his work makes so much more sense. Oh my God, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius is one of the best books you can read for self help. Forget all the modern stuff. Like, go back in time and just read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and then also read the Havamal, which to me, in tone, is very similar to Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. So, highly recommend. It's a wonderful text. It was really just a journal that Marcus Aurelius was writing about his life, but it was so poetic and so deep and such a great record of not just how the ancient Romans viewed concepts of morality, but also how they viewed their inner selves, their inner world. And then when you look at a text from a completely different culture, the Norse culture, and you read the Havamal, you get this really personalized look at how the Norse people viewed questions of morality. But something that's true to both the Havamal and Meditations by Marcus Aurelius is the multitude of passages about friendship, which really surprised me. But both texts really write a lot about the importance of having loyal, kind friends in your life, something that in modern society we often neglect. I mean, honestly, our friendships seem to come last in order of importance from our relationships, our jobs, our career, or other responsibilities. And I find it so fascinating and meaningful that these ancient pagan cultures really saw the value in creating community, in building friendships. So that's just kind of one of my thoughts about those two texts. But thank you so much for that comment. Let me see. A comment here from Pagan Court that says, what about meditation for deity communication? Yes, definitely. Meditation can be a great tool to attempt to communicate with deity. Now, I wouldn't just do meditation. In my view, in looking at the historical record with pagan deities, you probably want to leave an offering first. There's this concept of the gift cycle, right? So you give something to the deity so that the deity may give something to you. So first leaving a deity an offering of some kind, and then putting yourself in a meditative state to see kind of what might come through, what might with types of wisdom or guidance might come through from the particular deity. So yeah, I highly recommend trying that out. Let me see here. Oh, I see we have a super chat from Rachel. Thank you so much. Cheers. That says, I feel a physical pulling downward when meditating. Typically, my head feels very heavy and slowly falls to the left. I recently felt a literal heaviness pulling up the right side of my entire body. Any reason why? I think that sensation of heaviness is pretty common for roots coming out of your body into the earth. And part of the reason it can be such a healing practice is because it has this heavy grounding property when so much of the day we're up here in our mind and all scatterbrained. So yeah, I think that is a common feature of meditation and something that can be really good for us, that sensation of feeling grounded and heavy here physically on earth. Oh, I think my internet went out for a second. Can you hear me now? Let me know in the comments. Sorry about that if you couldn't hear me for a second there. So next, let's move on to ancient Rome. So we do know, at least we have record that meditation was practiced in ancient Rome starting in the 3rd century CE. Now we know this from a book, the Aeneid, written by Plotinus, I'm not quite sure. It's Plotinus if you want to look it up. And the purpose of meditation in an ancient Roman pagan context was to understand and celebrate the divine within ourselves. So I got a quote from you from this book from the 3rd century CE. And it states, if you imagine you're different from the all pervading divine being, you are not yet in the fully illuminated state. When you and it are perfectly one, with no sense of even the possibility that you could be two, then you have attained real understanding and a true perception of your highest self, the true inner being which never departs from complete perfection. So I think that quote tells us a lot about what the ancient Romans were trying to achieve in their meditation practice, which is really recognizing that the divine is not just up there in the heavens, it's within us, it's within all of us and everything. Recognizing the divine within and realizing we are the same as the divine without. As the occultists say, as above, so below, as within, so without. Right? So, this concept that the divine exists within is, I think, really powerful. And once you realize that we have that divine spark within each and every one of us, it makes the study of something like magic, for example, so much more interesting. We're really just attempting to tap into that divine part of self when we attempt practices like divination or spell work, things like that, or just trying to connect with deity at all. It's easy because we also are divine. That understanding that the divine is within as it is in the heavens. So I like that concept, and I think it's a really powerful example of how the Romans thought of meditation as really being this tool to help us understand this greater concept about the divine, about spirit, and about deity. So when you look at these three examples, both the Norse, the Greece, and the Roman, these three examples are all intensely spiritual, right? And highly different from the way that we mostly incorporate meditation in our daily lives in a modern context. And that fits with what we were talking about early on, and how meditation used to be this spiritual, almost religious practice in some cases, and that it's lost a lot of that spiritual connotation and become simply a practice of reducing anxiety. So perhaps one of our quests as modern pagans is to reinvigorate this spiritual concept of meditation, to return it to its original intent, its original purpose of attempting to connect ourselves with this greater spiritual divine power. So I think that's neat, and I think that's a good quest for us all modern pagans to return meditation to this deeply meaningful and spiritual practice. But let me know what you guys have to say, and then we're going to jump into talking about some different types of meditation that you can try out. Let's see. Let's see. And I see Benja or Benya is mentioning about Plotinus and giving me a little bit more context, saying he was a major Hellenistic philosopher born and raised in Roman Egypt, regarded by modern scholars as the founder of Neoplatonism, and that he wouldn't be speaking for all ancient Roman beliefs. Yes, thank you for your correction. That is true. So just because this example we have written down, that doesn't mean that all Romans believed in this idea of meditation. Of course, the Roman Empire itself was very vast and took place over a long period of time. So there would have been many ideas about meditation and what it might be. Let me see here. Genghis has an interesting comment that says religion has dropped so much of spirituality and esoteric practices to mass market itself as a monolith and lost some of its magic. That's interesting. And I think a lot about Christianity with that comment. I've always thought that even though I definitely will never be Christian, if I were to be Christian, I would probably have to choose Catholicism because Catholicism is the only branch of Christianity that at least is still tied to some of that ancient magic, or at least tries to incorporate that in its practices. It still has the incense, it still has the chanting in Latin, it still has the mystery and the magic of the artwork. So I agree, though, there is this huge shift towards making religion mass market and capitalistic. And the more you do that, I feel like the more it devalues the practice itself. And that's something we've talked about before on Pagan Happy Hour about witchcraft and paganism as a whole, as the more it's become marketable and approachable to the masses, in my view, the more it's lost its mystique or perhaps even its magic. The reason, at least, I was drawn towards this path was because of that magic. So I do think there is something lost when we try to make pagan faiths appeal to the masses. And paganism isn't necessarily meant to appeal to everyone. It draws who it draws, and people find us or they don't find us. But if they do find us, they're probably meant to. So I think that's a great comment, or a really interesting concept about how we view religion and spirituality in the modern world. Let me see what you guys have to say as well. Let's see. So the next thing I thought we talked about is different types of meditation. If you are not quite familiar with all the different types yet, and of course, I'm just going to go over some of them. There are probably hundreds of different types of meditation. Now, the most popular type of meditation is probably mindfulness meditation. This is the type of meditation you see peddled to you in the apps and the blog posts, things like that. Now, this is based on just being mindful and gaining in increased awareness and acceptance of living in the present moment. This is a really good thing, especially for me and anyone else that struggles with anxiety, because we're always anxious about the future, right? So any type of practice that allows us to take a moment to just be mindful and recognize the present is probably good for our mental health. Now, during mindfulness meditation, usually focus on whatever you're experiencing during the process of meditation. Usually that is your breath. That's why you focus on your breath during meditation. So it's not necessarily trying to make your mind go completely blank. It's just trying to focus on the sensation of the meditation itself, usually through breath, and then observing your thoughts or emotions, but trying not to give judgment to them, more so viewing them as gently passing like a cloud. And I have done mindfulness meditation quite often, and I do find that it is really successful. It does allow me to feel like I'm in the present moment. It does help myself calm down when I do feel highly anxious. So I think it's a great practice and a great type of meditation to start if you are just starting out with this practice. Now, the next type of meditation is guided meditation, which probably is my personal favorite. And in guided meditation, you form mental images of places or situations that you might find relaxation. Might find relaxing. So there's an inherent visualization aspect to guided meditation. Sometimes it's just a body scan, right? I like to listen to guided meditations on YouTube. There's a ton of great ones you can find. The YouTuber Jason Stevenson, I recommend checking him out if you do like guided meditations. Sometimes they are these body scan ones where you just think about the different parts of your body. And then as you think about them, you focus on them relaxing. So you're visualizing the different parts of your body. Or sometimes you're visualizing a scene that you find relaxing, like a beach, for example. So, this is a great type of meditation if you are someone that is pagan or a witch, because visualization is also a huge part of many pagan and witchcraft practices. So, I highly recommend trying guided meditation out. One of the unusual, or maybe it's not unusual, ways I do guided meditation is actually with my tarot deck. I'll take a tarot card, and instead of just visualizing a relaxing scene, I'll visualize the actual image in the tarot card and try and place myself in the image. One of the cards I do that the most with is the Star card. This is a card of healing and hope. Oh, it's very glare, a lot of glare right now. But what I try and do is basically imagine myself in this scene. Imagine seeing the stars in the sky, hearing the rush of water, asking myself, what does this scene smell like? What does this scene feel like? Can I feel the grass beneath my toes as I'm walking along the path? So, trying to place myself in certain tarot cards and asking the figures in the tarot card what guidance or wisdom they have to share with me. That's a type of guided meditation that I really love to do. And it's something that can really help deepen your understanding of the tarot cards and their archetypes as well, if you are interested in learning. So that's my personal favorite type of meditation. But there are many others. Another popular one is mantra meditation, where you silently repeat a calming word or phrase to really prevent those distracting thoughts and to just kind of focus inward on the moment at hand. There's also transcendental meditation, which is kind of similar, where you repeat this mantra. It's usually a word or a sound. Of course, we know the sound Om, right? That's the most popular one. But you're repeating this kind of mantra in a specific way. And this form of meditation usually allows your body to kind of settle into this state of intense relaxation and helps your mind achieve a lot of kind of inner peace. And I am not an expert in transcendental meditation, but those that do this practice a lot say that it's one of the best ways to meditate, because you don't have to put so much concentration and effort into that. It comes really natural. But it's not something I've done much yet. Maybe I'll get into it later on. I'd love to hear your examples on if you've tried transcendental meditation, what you thought about it. But another couple examples that are more physical, because meditation does not just have to happen within the mind, it can also happen within the physical body. You have Qigong, which is, of course, Chinese, which combines meditation and relaxation and physical movement, as well as breathing exercises to kind of help restore and maintain the balance of the energy within the body. Qigong is part of Chinese medicine. You also have Tai Chi, which is a part of Chinese martial arts, which is kind of cool, where you make slow movements. And these movements and these postures help to put both your mind and your body in this meditative state to allow for greater relaxation. And of course, the big one, yoga, right? Yoga can also be a form of meditation. Now, sometimes yoga directly includes meditation as a practice after you've done the body movements, or sometimes you can think of the body movements themselves as a meditative practice. So those are three examples of meditation that involve physical movement. Of course, you could just do a simple walking meditation where you are going on a walk. Maybe you're listening to some calming music, or you're not listening to anything and you're just attempting to notice the sensations, the sounds, the smells, the feeling of the pavement beneath your feet or the grass beneath your feet, and just experiencing that present moment. So there are so many forms of meditation, which I really like because it allows you to connect with something that works with you personally. And that's really neat, that you can really just play around with all these different types and find something that fits best within your daily routine and your own personal interests. And I think meditation is so wonderful for pagan practice as a whole in a variety of ways. Of course, the ability to visualize is important, and meditation can improve that. It can help with connecting with deity. It can help us just focus our mind more intently on our ritual practice. So I think meditation is really one of the best tools we as modern pagans can incorporate and implement into our own practices. And I think it's wonderful, and at least doing some research for this live chat, that so many various pagan cultures have incorporated meditation in the past and in so many different ways that I find fascinating. So we got about 4 minutes left. I'd like to hear final questions from you guys or final thoughts you might have about meditation in paganism. So do please share any questions or final comments, and I will get into them. Let's see. I see some of you guys mentioning walking meditation, and yes, that is such a great form of meditation, especially if you find regular meditation where you're just seated kind of difficult. I do love a good walking meditation. Oh, and I see I have a super chat here from Catherine. Thank you so much. Cheers. Let's see, a fun question from Draven that asks, when you move, are you going to try to meditate in the Garden of Good and Evil in Savannah? If you're not familiar, In the Garden of Good and Evil is probably the most popular book based in the city of Savannah. And yes, I've read it. It's a really wonderful book. The statue is now in a museum, so I can't meditate in front of that statue, but I can meditate in the cemetery, Bonaventure Cemetery, and maybe get some interesting visits from some ghosts. Who knows? Thanks for the question. Catherine is asking if I have any experience in using meditation to connect with nature in general. Yes, I definitely have done that, especially when I have some offerings that I want to give to the land spirits. And the spirits of the land is something that you'll find in Norse paganism, but also other branches of paganism as well, such as Celtic paganism, where you leave offerings for these nature spirits. So one of the things I will do after I've left the offering is usually try and find like a quiet tree I can sit under and meditate for a few minutes. In that meditation, I'm trying to kind of offer, this offering, and to see if, there might be any wisdom coming through, anything those nature spirits might have to say, or any requests or guidance. So I do try and just spend a few moments quietly kind of meditating after leaving an offering for the nature spirits, or just leaving an offering for any deity. I usually try to do that as well. Let me see here. Okay. Lots of questions coming in. Let's see. Alexander makes a great point in the comments, mentioning it's difficult in this busy world to find time to meditate regularly. Yes, it is. And I personally go through bouts of meditating regularly and then like not meditating at all for a month or so. I'm the same way with a lot of things in life. But yeah, it is really hard. I mean, we live in such a distracted society. And social media and the internet make it even harder. So yeah, don't feel guilty if you find time to time. It's a lot more challenging, I think, nowadays for us to consciously take the time we need for that self care, for that mental, physical, and spiritual health that meditation can provide. And we get so wrapped up in everyday goings on that it is tricky. And of course, the internet and social media makes it very difficult for our attention spans, for our chattery minds to stay quiet for minutes. So definitely agree there. It is very difficult and more difficult now than when I first started trying out meditation like 10 years ago. I've gotten almost worse at it than better. And part of me wonders is if technology has had a huge part to play with that. I used to be much better at meditation when I was a teenager than now. Let's see. A couple other last questions. Draven's asking, do you use music in meditations? Sometimes, especially if it's like a guided meditation, usually there'll be music in there. Let's see. Great comments and questions, guys. Keep them coming. Let's see. Joan in the comments says, I leave an offering to nature spirits every Monday morning, but never thought to take the time to meditate when doing it. You should definitely give it a try and then chime back in next Pagan Happy Hour. Let us know how it goes. Let's see. Great comments, guys. And thank you so much. It's probably time to sign off. Again, I want to wish you a happy Freya's Day and happy Friday the 13th. And I hope you all had a good week. I want to wish you a wonderful weekend. And I will see you next Friday for Pagan Happy Hour. Talk to you later. Bye.